What's up, guys? It's Future Sean here. Welcome to episode 71 of the podcast. Part 1 of this will be a general catch-up, talking e-com, fun, hanging out. We haven't talked to each other for a couple of weeks. Part 2, we have a Northbeam extended interview with the CEO at the end. So if you ever just wanted more operators, you want to know who the hell we work with, stick around till the end, watch both parts. And if you want to know more about Northbeam, they're a sponsor of the pod. Same thing with Fulfill. Phil's a premium sponsor. There goes Northbeam. Then they're tied with Postscript. Love all three of those softwares. I use them all the time. So thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Talk to you later.
Guys, I want to talk to you about Fulfill, one of the sponsors of the pod, and why we are big fans. They have built a modern ERP that is built for digital entrepreneurs that want to keep their books in order and want to make sure that they're driving their business forward, have good reporting and good visibility into their inventory, into their financials. These are things you have to grow, and Fulfill has done a great job of it. One of the things I love about the company, they're bootstrapped. They don't have outside investors, so they're able to build the company the right way. From their pricing model to how they add features, they've been able to do it in a way that's entrepreneur friendly. Sean uses them. They're a great product. I would encourage everybody to check them out. Fulfill, thanks for being a sponsor of the pod. I don't think I've seen headphones like that since my grandfather. Those are amazing.
Listen, my DJ career is just about to get going. And I know a couple of really good DJs, so I have some good instruction.
Dude, you know
DJ Pans is a great DJ name.
Yeah, we can spin them on some Hexclad, you know.
God.
DJ Pan Man in the house. Let's
DJ
go.
Pan. All right, DJ Pans. So when you get how do you get your haircut? This was the topic of conversation. Do you have a person?
My haircut?
And does that person come to you?
I'm actually super low maintenance when it comes to haircuts. I actually hate getting my hair cut. And I will go to any barber on the planet and have them cut my hair because my hair is so easy, you know. In fact, the biggest thing is the beard. Like, I hate trimming my beard, and I will pay extra. I will go to find someone and just to make my beard really clean. I don't have the
Do you have a beard person that just is the only person you trust with your beard?
No, unfortunately, no. I have. I'm happy to spread it around when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Well, I didn't realize that people came to you for a haircut. This is news to me. Mike had somebody come to his office to cut his hair. I didn't know this was a thing. I thought this was a movie
I thought
thing.
there was something special about barbershops where that's the only, geographic place that hair could be cut.
Yeah.
It's like
It turns out the scissors work everywhere.
DoorDash
work
for hair.
everywhere.
It's I used to like kind of give my wife a hard time about her door dashing, and she literally loves DoorDash. Like, she gets so excited when the shipment gets there. It's kind of weird, but like, I totally get it because it really does save you time. That extra 20%. You think about, we talked about this once before, I think, Mike. We talked about it, like, you cannot value that time enough, I think. And so mobile haircut. Yeah, I'm gonna have a mobile car detailer come out here. I'm in the Hamptons.
I'm doing that.
It's
Yes,
done
you
nothing.
gotta do that.
It's done nothing but rain here. I mean, there was like biblical level rain last night. I was in Monterey for Car Week for a week at my house in Carmel, and it was like epically beautiful weather. And before that, I was here in the Hamptons, and we had rain 10 out of 14 days. And then I show up yesterday, and last night, like, the house was like shaking from all the rain, like biblical levels of rain.
Welcome to Oklahoma weather, man. We in 8 days, we had by 9 a.m., 9 or 10 days ago, by 9 a.m. that day, we'd had the wettest day in the history of summer in Oklahoma. And wettest day, like by 9 a.m. How's that even possible? And then yesterday it was 106 degrees, which was the hottest day for that part of August in the history of recorded. So,
and like 90% humidity probably too. Right?
Well, it's not quite like Houston, but man. And then we haven't even talked about Twisters. We went and saw that movie, which was amazing. Here's a fun side note about Twisters. The number one grossing theater for Twisters was literally a theater that's been hit twice by tornadoes in the last 12 years. So it's a little too on the nose.
Life imitating art.
Yes, there's actually in the movie, there's the big climax is a twister hits a movie theater, and we're like, yeah, okay, exactly. In fact, this building that we're in, I was under contract, and the day before it closed, that night there was a tornado that went like a half a mile from here, and I'm like, I have got to be the biggest idiot ever buying a huge building, where there's constantly tornadoes.
I have a weird business question for you on this then. So, do you have like tornado insurance? Is that a special thing?
It's not a special thing. It's really what gets torn up. I mean, it falls under home insurance, but what gets torn up a lot is roofs here, but a combination of hail and tornadoes. And so I actually posted about this on Twitter. The person that was doing my home insurance, they jacked my premium, I think 60% year over year this year. So and I know that's happening everywhere. The Florida numbers, some people were sharing their rate increases that lived in Florida, and it was wild. It was some of them were more than double year over year. You're like, well, how is that sustainable?
You want to talk about weird that you have to deal with? So I live in a very active forest fire zone. So every summer is a lot of fires. And one thing that's unique to us here is you can't actually get any kind of insurance, home insurance, commercial insurance, anything, if there's an active fire within 25 miles as the crow flies of where you are. So if you buy or you get into a new warehouse or something, there's no insurance on that if there's an active fire. So most people here try not to move in the summer because when you move into your house, you have no insurance.
Because something is always on fire.
Dude, basically. Always. We have an app on our phone that just shows us where all the fires are at all times.
Yeah, there's this principle. You can't get flood insurance in Oklahoma. You have to I'm trying to remember how you do it. You have to do it through the state or something. And it's the idea you can't sell insurance if you can't estimate losses is basically the idea. And so there's certain types of insurance that are basically no company, no for-profit company would ever step in front of.
So in California, there are plenty of issues with fire insurance, but the state has some sort of fire insurance fund. So you are covered, but you pay into the state. Is that what you have?
And that's why the reason why it's the government is handling that insurance is because it doesn't work on a commercial basis. You can't estimate the damage that might come from a forest fire, and so the state has to step in and provide it. Same thing with flood insurance in Oklahoma.
Cool. Mike, do you want to talk about this velocity thing?
Yeah, so I'll introduce the topic that the last week I've been thinking a lot about. We talk about having bias to action in our business, and we want to be action oriented. We all know, and anybody listening to this knows, that you have to be action oriented to be successful. And the reason is really simple, that when you're an upstart, when you're a smaller company, if you don't have a bias to action, inaction leads to the status quo and it leads to death. But the thing that I've been thinking about is bias to action isn't probably enough, because just telling people be busy, fill your schedule, do things, often they'll choose really unhelpful or ineffective things to do. And so a couple of ways to communicate the idea that I've been kicking around and I wanted us to kick around as a group is, how do you have effective action? So one way I've heard this verbalized is you don't really just want speed in your organization. You want velocity, which is speed plus direction. Or you don't really want bias to action as much as you want bias to impact, where you're doing things that are impactful and will change the trajectory of the organization. So it sounds great, but the question is, how do you actually pull that off when it comes to leading people and setting direction? And immediately, one of the things I thought about was Sean will occasionally, he goes on these kind of epic rants, I guess, on Ridge's Slack or, Notion or whatever. And then he'll post them in the groups where he's trying to focus his team around what he deems to really matter in the business. And so anyway, I wanted to throw the question out to the group of how do you do that? How do you have bias to impact? How do you have velocity in your organization?
Well, you heard mine.
We get to see yours.
Yeah, aggressive.
We've seen yours. They haven't. Everybody listening hasn't.
Yeah, just aggressive Slack, commands. What I'd say is that an organization should have bottoms up information, but top down direction. And you should use whatever information to make the direction. But if you talk to your employees, individual contributors, and ask them what they think is important, they'll have their own ideas about different ways to grow revenue or different projects that are important, right? And it'll be informed by their lens of just who they are as a person, right? Like, and their function in the organization. If you ask like your CX lead, what's the most important thing? They're going to be like, we have to find a way to get these less tickets coming in the door, right? Which is, going back to Mike, um, you know, getting less tickets in the door, you could just have less orders, and then that objective would be done. And that's obviously the worst
Right.
possible thing for your business is less orders. So the more I'm a CEO, the more I'm in this role, I realize that the only thing you're in charge of is like strategic direction, and it has to be incredibly simple. Like I don't do very little work. I basically repeat like the same 3 lines over and over again, and I tweet it at them, I Slack it to them, I'm on calls where I talk about it, and it's just the 3 things over and over. So, you know, I think about it, the last point is, everyone's like, "Oh, we want everybody rowing in the same direction." Unless you set that direction and check back on it over and over again, you'll find people are running around the ship, you'll find people are, they've burned their oars because they got cold, like, all of these crazy things can happen. So it's like you actually have to be methodical that, like, yes, it looks like there's treasure over there. Yes, it looks like there's an island over there. No, we are going exactly this way. We're only going due west, and there's nothing else that's gonna stop us.
Sean, it it doesn't sound like you have like a very kind and gentle approach at Ridge, and I would like to double click on that for just a second because we find that I find that people, employees these days are just like a lot more sensitive, and it's something that we find we have to be really mindful of now. And I find it rather annoying because coming from investment banking and legal, where it's just like, just get it done or you're gone, is like the culture that I lived in for 25 years, or at least 20. Um, and it's different now. I was just wondering, how does that feel at all of your organizations? Because I know that this is a me issue. It's not a HexCloud issue. It's just I struggle with it because I consider myself a like a good person, but I also don't suffer the babiness, right? So I I'm very, very kind to everyone that works with me. I take people out like personally all the time. I've got like a number of different employees from HexClad are going to make their way through our Hamptons house this summer because I just genuinely just like I mix. Danny said this the other day. No one mixes business and pleasure better than Jason, which is probably not a good thing. But I just like, I mean, that's like my like these are my friends because I just see them so much. So I've got like a lot of people will come through, but by the same token, like when it comes to getting the job done, it's like I don't have time for the bullshit. And I'm just kind of curious because there's so many sensitive people out there these days. And I would like to hear what you guys think.
Well, I think effectively pushing people requires having relationships because eventually you get the Tom Thibodeau kind of effect. And if anybody listening isn't familiar with Tom Thibodeau, he's a coach, he's very defensive minded, and he runs his teams hard. He will get to a new stop, and there's immediate improvement in the metrics. They'll immediately start to climb up the rankings of their conference and they'll make the playoffs. But he has this history by year 3, by year 4, it starts to go the other way. And part of it's because he just runs guys so hard that eventually you kind of lose the locker room, and that's true for all kinds of leaders, that they can be effective in short spurts, but that if you're not cultivating relationships, eventually it's difficult to keep people following you. But you're going to have to push people. And one of the things I thought of when you were talking, Sean, is that part of what makes it difficult to be a leader is that effective leadership in business, you're actually creating more problems and not reducing problems. Like most people think business and being good at business is that you see a problem, you fix a problem, there's less problems. But it's actually a growing business is the opposite of that. It's actually you're expanding the problem set because you're expanding revenue. And what we get paid to do is solve problems. So if you leave it to people to determine what to work on, they're never going to intuitively come up with, if I'm doing my job well, I'm actually creating more problems and not reducing the number of problems. That's how you get the idea that, like, hey, the goal is to reduce the number of support tickets. It's like, no, the goal is, if we're healthy, the number of support tickets might double this year. And that's a good thing, not a bad thing.
I was gonna answer Jason's question about kindness, and this is a very through my own lens, I think I'm incredibly kind, right? But what I'd say that Rich is not is gentle. And I tell my team all the time I'm an incredibly transparent leader. Like I tell people, I'm like, you're fucking up right now. Please stop. Right. But it comes from a place of kindness. Like I don't think I'm ever rude or mean or whatever, but the number one thing about being a remote organization is you get freedom. In exchange for freedom, you give up tact, I would say. It's like, look, we don't have enough time for me to like, beat around what I need out of you. I'm like, hey, this is what we're doing, and everyone is doing this or they don't get to work here, right? It's my chief product officer Daniel, original founder of the company, had a very great line where it's like, we had an employee. He came to us and he's like, "Hey, you guys aren't listening to me. Like, I have ideas and you're not hearing me." And no, we were hearing him. They were just bad ideas. And when people say that, what they mean is, no, I want you to do my ideas. And it's like, no, no, no. We understand. We hear what your ideas are. They're bad. So we're not doing them. And like that is just really hard for people to hear. The guy's awesome, great designer, no longer with the business, but there's a disconnect there because people expect that you're going to do what they want, and it's like, no, that's just not how this company works. I decide what we do, and it's been successful that way. So that was Jason's point.
The ideas don't even have to be bad. It's just like if that's not where we're going, it doesn't matter. And some people are destructive to a team, not in that they have bad ideas, but that their ideas are not aligned with the focus of the company. Right. And that can be just as destructive. Really smart people that refuse to get on board with the overall direction that's being set, the strategic goals. You can have lots of smart ideas, but it's just a distraction and noise if it doesn't align with what everybody else is trying to do. I mean, part of the game, right, is getting an entire organization moving the same direction at the same time.
Totally.
It's also a cultural thing. Like what you're all describing is, and Jason, it's a great question because it is very much a cultural thing. Like there's a big difference between being kind, being respectful, being direct and being respectful or being kind. Like those are all mutually exclusive things. Like the iron fist and a velvet glove is how I like to refer to it. It's like, or sometimes I tell my team, we're a democracy run by a dictator. Right? Like it has to come down, top down at some point. But I think Mike or Sean, the idea thing, like you want a culture where you actually tell people, or at least I do, you want all ideas on the table, but you also want everybody to celebrate that not all ideas are good ones. And even if they're good ones, that doesn't mean they're right ones. Right? So you want to create a culture where everybody is bringing stuff forward all the time, but that they're okay that it doesn't matter who's right, it's what's right. And that ultimately that comes down to one person, and that one person is going to have a communication style that it just is. Like in our business, Jason, I would say I'm probably more like Sean. I'm more direct. And it's more, I don't have time, like we don't have time as a business. So can we just cut all the fluff around the message and just deliver the message?
Yeah, man.
I'm probably on a spectrum. I'm probably, if we're using the kindness spectrum, I'm probably like naturally the person that wants to have the kindest bedside manner out of the group. But it has really been impressed upon me in recent weeks that more than anything else, my job is to make sure that this organization wins and that it doesn't matter how nice a guy I am. If we don't have good strategy and we are not performing, like people are working here to get paid. They are trying to support their families. They want the organization to win. And so that actually supersedes even my kindness. Now, I don't think you have to choose either or. I don't think they're mutually exclusive, but if I've ever gotten it backwards that first and foremost, I want people to like me, I've been disabused of that idea that first and foremost, people want to make sure they want to believe that I'm doing everything it takes to set us up to win. And they would rather me being a little bit prickly at times, but lead us to effective outcomes than me being the nicest guy they've ever met. And we've all probably been around a leader like that, really nice person, but was, leading people off a cliff. And nobody wants that in a business leader.
Yeah, I want to go back to this idea of kindness versus gentleness because, like, kindness, I have never wronged anyone who's ever worked for me. Like, they've always been taken care of to the whatever degree they deserved, right? So severance or bonuses or raises or whatever, right? To me, I'm like, oh, that's kindness. gentle, people will say that I am incredibly mean and rude. Or like, I'll be like, you need to stop talking. We are moving on to a different point now. And it's just like, I think it's just working over the internet. Like, what am I going to do? Hit him with an emoji, put my hand up and like, be like, hey guy, like we're going to take this offline. Everything's online.
These are two awesome concepts, by the way. I love Mike's concept of like we're paid to solve problems. And that's a mindset I think that really help a lot of people in business. It, you're not there to like reduce problems. You're there to solve problems, and they just change, right? The problems our shop problems have changed a lot over the years, and then I love what Sean said about like being kind but not gentle. Those are both awesome takeaways from this conversation. I think those are both tweetable, and I'm going to steal them both. So you guys are not allowed to tweet that.
There you go. Basically, guys, this entire thing, whether you realize it or not, is just helping Jason come up with social media content. And we just happen to let people listen.
I tweet the least out of the four of us, guys. So I need a little help.
One of the things I do like to say about the problem thing, Jason, is that business is about solving problems, and it's actually growing businesses are about increasing the scope of problems that you solve. And that's what the market compensates you for. But there are good problems and bad problems. And part of good leadership is that you're setting up your organization where the problems you're addressing are good ones or ones that you choose and not ones that are forced upon you. So the idea of like Sean dealt with a problem of he couldn't keep luggage in stock because it was selling so quickly, and that was a real growth vector. Hey, that's a problem, but that's a good problem, right? I don't know how we're going to make payroll next week, or I can't get my departments to get along with each other because they're so competitive and it's like Game of Thrones in here. Well, those are bad problems. And good leadership is about basically cultivating the problem set that your organization deals with, where they're problems that you're equipped to solve well, and they're the type of problems that you want to have, because certain problems are just raw stress and you want to avoid them if at all possible.
I'm reading, I think Sean, you asked this, or we were talking about this in a chat. I'm reading Brad Jacobs' book, How to Make a Few Billion, right now. The guy's track record is insane, right? But one of the things he talks about, I was just reading this, is that like all problems are opportunities, good problems or bad problems, they're all opportunities. And that an organization that views it that way is an effective organization. And then I think, Mike, the other thing that comes up for me, whenever I hear the word velocity, I immediately go to volatility, which speaks to the whole problem thing. Like an organization without volatility does not have velocity. Mm-hmm. Like they go hand in hand. And if you don't have volatility,
how do they go hand in hand? Because I think that's a really interesting point, but I want you to connect it for everybody, even for me. How do they go hand in hand?
Yeah. So volatility comes from creating bigger and bigger problems, right? And sometimes those are bottom up, sometimes they're top down. Like Sean, I'm sure that's not like when you lob some of your Slack bombs across, they are going to create volatility in the organization for sure. Right? Like teams are going to have to change the way they work. People are going to have to go do uncomfortable things, but that's volatility. I'm not talking about like volatility in results, Mike. I'm talking about like the actual input and what you're doing. I did this at the beginning of the year in Pila case. I wanted to stretch the supply chain side to a point where we could make any case, any product, one of one design at any time. Somebody came in and said, like, I wanted to have pink unicorns on it, my grandmother's picture. We should be able to do that. Well, the only path to that was I forced the team to start cranking out like 8 new designs every week, and then 12, and get them really like just break the whole thing, right? Yeah, we created a hexclad case. I'm like, let's just throw like shots on goal. And that just created a ton of volatility in that function in the business. But then what came out of it was like full customization. We can manufacture one of one anything. We built better software, better processing, better everything came out of that. And that goes to the velocity thing, which is the direction we wanted to go in the business was a completely on demand. Like we were close, but we weren't quite there. We wanted to get completely manufactured on demand, any product, personalized, customized, anything. So that's what I mean by volatility.
Yeah. So to pick up on that, when I was thinking through this question last week of bias to impact, what are the fingerprints? What are the necessary ingredients? I came up with 3 kind of principles, and I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on them. The first principle is that the activity you're engaging in, the thing you're focusing on, has the chance to change your life. And it's amazing how much organizational work gets done that has no chance to produce meaningful outcomes. This is Parkinson's law, which, if you're not familiar with Parkinson's law, it's basically this idea that the work expands to kind of fill the space needed. Parkinson was a researcher who looked at the British Navy. The British Navy, basically from the end of World War I to like the 1950s, the number of ships went down, but the number of administrators doubled. And you see this actually happening in a bunch of places where organizations have this drift towards just more and more people where not more gets done. So the first principle was, anything you're engaging in, does it have the chance to be asymmetric on the upside? Does it have a chance to change your life? And then the second question was, is the thing you're engaging in, do you have a reasonable reason to think that you could be successful? Or is it just hope? Is the strategy hope? We've probably all been in situations where there was this big idea that your team or the organization wanted to go after, but you really didn't have a lot of reason to believe that you were going to be successful. You just wished you could be successful, or you thought it'd be great if we were successful. But have you done the work to know that you have a chance to be successful? And then the third principle is that I think if A and B are true, I think that you don't get too hung up when things don't work. I think one of the things that paralyzes organizations is that when they go after big things and they don't work out for whatever reason, that all of a sudden there's all this recrimination, things slow down. Oh, hey, we shouldn't do that again. We shouldn't take big swings again. And the reality is, in business, if you're doing anything that has the chance to change your life, anything that has the chance to be asymmetric on the upside, probably the odds are against it succeeding. But people don't deal with that very well. And so you've got to create a culture where, hey, on to the next one.
Postscript is the only SMS solution you need if you're a Shopify e-commerce merchant. I just got the new walkthrough of the Ridge/Postscript/AI/brand center thing they're working on. I'm gonna be super honest. I have very unfamiliar with SMS as a tool. When I started my agency business, people were still sending emails, and the world's advanced to this new text-based platform showing up in your inbox. Postscript's leading that charge. We've been working on it for 4 weeks. We've been in the new AI demo. They got me an extra $12K of purely incremental revenue, more than pays for the demo, pays for all the sends, whatever. I think we generated like $124,000 in total SMS revenue, like, over like 7 or 14 days or something. 12,000 of that was brand new just because of AI. So like a 10% lift and improvement just based on using the AI features. What are the AI features? I'm not going to tell you about those. If you want to hear about those, go to postscript.io, tell them Sean sent you, and they'll give you all these brand new AI features. I think it's generating what the text should be based on interactions with that person. So way more personalized, and it's leading to a 21% lift in EPM. We are closing way more abandoned carts because of this AI feature. They also have a new thing called infinity testing, which sounds like it's from Marvel. It's like, Postscript infinity testing. It's like if you turn it on, you're going to like unlock the Rubik's Cube of Zoran or something. Look, I'm really happy with Postscript. I'm going to give you my version of why you should work with Postscript. They haven't sued any of their past clients. There's a couple players in the space, not going to name them, but they're pretty famous for giving you free AirPods, that they lead you in the door with very predatory contracts. And then if you try to leave, they withhold your list and they try to sue you. Postscript promises they won't do that. So way more friendly, way more business friendly, way more cutting edge when it comes to actual tech. I think the team at Postscript they're technologists through and through. They're not just sleazy SMS business cats, okay? They care about the products they're making, and they're investing money in AI to get that done. Try out Postscript sometime, and that's the ad read.
Mike, when you, communicating this internally, I love it. Are we talking about leadership at this point, like people? So like you're trying to like build good judgment into leadership, or is this something that you're thinking about full stack, like all the way down the org to the guy who packs boxes?
Well, I think it's probably both. I mean, I'm really thinking about it in terms of how do I communicate and what do I strategically focus on and where are the times that I might chase a shiny object, or get distracted by something that just isn't central. This is one of the things like I said, I really appreciate about Sean is that I think Sean is hyper focused. And even if it's not always, as you said, Sean, gentle, nobody's going to confuse what you care about and what you're focused on. But I also think you're trying to push this down the organization. One of Sean's favorite people of all time, Keith Raboy, has this concept uh, that one of the reasons why you don't want people to be too busy is that when they're really busy, they have more things they could work on than they have time, and they will naturally gravitate towards C and B projects and not A projects because A projects, the outcome is uncertain and they don't know how to actually attack it. And so I do think there is something about teaching in your organization, not just at the leadership level, but trying to push that down, teaching people to think in terms of doing meaningful things and taking on meaningful things and not just filling up their time. Because otherwise, people will view it as the company's paying me to be here for 40 or 50 hours and to do things that need to be done. And they'll view C projects as being as important as A projects, and they're not at all. The A projects end up shaping your company, the C projects don't really matter in the long run. And so, if you can build that thought process organizationally, then it certainly gets a lot easier at the top that you're not having to constantly like herd cats and say like, no, guys, this is what's important.
Mike, I want to talk about asymmetric bets, risks, and failures. Because I think that is you said two beautiful things. The first was that your job as CEO or as an executive is to create more problems. Nobody ever thinks about that. That I
It's so
people
counterintuitive, right?
yeah, people hate me in the organization because I'm like, "Hey, I found this new toy, play with it," right? I'm just throwing things at them, right? They hate that. But the other thing is everyone talks about 10xing, everyone talks about power law, everyone talks about asymmetric risk. No one ever wants to talk about failure. If you are hitting a power law thing, that means you failed 9 out of 10 times. And,
Yeah.
VCs don't talk about companies that go out of business. Inside your organization, when was the last time you failed at something? Because if you haven't failed recently, it means you're not trying enough things. And I have a whole book of failures, bro. I made fucking deodorant and chapstick. I made fragrance. I'm like I was working with a shoe factory. That's just on the product side. I've made product pitches to Capital One to buy us. I've made product pitches to fucking everybody, and I failed all the time, right? But that's because it's a power law thing. Like no one would have thought we'd have a 8-figure Best Buy business in the first 6 months. No one would have thought that I'd have an 8-figure travel business in the first 6 months. But it's because I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have an 8-figure something business. I'm gonna try a bunch of fucking shit. It was gonna be shoes or fragrance or luggage. I guess luggage works. So people should fail more, and no one wants to do that. No one wants to talk about it. And would you fire your employees for failing? Think about that. You shouldn't.
I'd fire my employees for seeing something wrong and not saying anything, but never for failing.
Well, you have to build your team out of people that have a particular mindset to be able to do this, Sean. And this is where most people are just not actually cut out for entrepreneurship or smaller, fast growing companies because it requires failure is a necessary ingredient to bake the cake of asymmetric success. It is a feature, not a bug. And I think what you said is great. You cannot find someone who has hit asymmetric success who has not had several failures because the odds of hitting a 100x, 50x, 1000x, upside project what are the odds of that working? 5%, 10%? They're certainly not very high. And so if you're the type of person that goes after those type of returns, like you're just going to have a lot of stuff that doesn't work out and you've got to have the emotional resilience. So one of my things I've actually taken away recently is that I want to be anti-fragile as a leader. That my job is to be the most mentally tough person in the organization. That regardless of what happens, I'm not getting thrown, I'm not getting shaken, I'm resolute. That's both with the capital and with the way that I go about my day-to-day business because the worst thing I could do is have an organization where we're trying to do asymmetric things and people feel like I'm volatile, or people feel like if a couple things don't go well, that's going to, bring out a different version of me. I need to be the same person every day, regardless of whether a bet hits or not.
You have to respect Silicon Valley for the culture they've created around this, Sean. You get like of all the things that like you can bag on them for, it's not this. Like whether it's the capital or it's people, entrepreneurs, whatever, they are so okay with just throwing shit against the wall and trying crazy things. And if it doesn't work, they're like, okay, and on to the next thing.
Totally. That is why all of the most successful, exciting companies are coming out of there. And I think our industry needs to learn that failure is totally okay. Most of us, took a big risk starting a business, right? And like Mike, you had companies that failed before, and this is the one that worked, and you're like, okay, this is the best idea. I'm going all in on it. But if it didn't work, you'd be selling socks or something else. Like you weren't
Yep.
going to stop along that curve. And we should just it looks like as soon as you reach some sort of like stability or safety, we kind of forget that what got us here was being crazy and taking risks. And I do want to say, I really admire you being anti-fragile, Mike. I am the exact opposite type of leader, and I can tell it makes my company, I'm more unhinged. I'm more unstable. It's just like who I am. Like I'll be mad. I'll like want to do something and I'll get mad, and then I'll have to calm down and then go forward. Uh, I think the company would be better with a steadier hand. But
Well, I think you're going to be, Sean. I mean, you're just a lot younger than I am, and when I think back about the way that I was at 33, I was a lot more volatile, as a person. Just I think this is one of the things that gets me excited is I'm just starting to become the leader that I think I'm capable of being. I really do think that like by my, I'm at 44, but I think I'm just starting to really figure it out. The fact that you're at where you are at your age, like you're gonna probably have far surpassed me by the time you're 44. Like it's a developed skill. The ability to be resolute and the ability to be steadfast, I think comes from experience and taking some punches and working through it.
I've yet to meet somebody young who's truly stoic. like seriously, that's, and it's not I don't want to make it just a purely age thing, but Mike's kind of right. It takes a long time to build that muscle. I think I would say I'm probably still more in Sean's direction. My wife calls it Italian fire. I go to anger very easily. So for me, I have to work very hard to like not react that way.
Here's one of the things I've done that has helped me. When I was younger and even early in this company, every decision, every day felt like a battle that we had to win. And now I realize I'm playing a multi-decade game, and that it's almost impossible in any one day, in any one decision, in any one project to meaningfully win or lose. Now, there are some days that matter more than others, for sure. But generally, the way that I'm winning is over years and decades. And that helped me to chill the F out. Like it just calmed me down of like, not everything rises and falls with how today goes. And sometimes today is not going to be good. And sometimes today will be pretty good. But either way, I'm not going to get too high. I'm not going to get too low, because my success is more a function of time and persistence over time than it is about intensity. And this idea is, I think, a pretty interesting one, that it's like, okay, if you think about how much intensity I approach a particular day with my team or whatever, and I can go between 70% and 100%, but then you think about duration, that somebody who's coming at 70 or 80% intensity but is able to do it over 10 or 20 years is going to smoke the person coming in at 100% intensity, but you're burning people out, or you yourself are not able to go for an extended period of time. And that's actually what you see a lot of, is you see leaders that just burn themselves out. And listen, guys, you just can't build multi-billion-dollar companies. You can't build really big things in short periods of time. These things take years and
It's
decades.
highly unlikely. it's the whole people don't fail, businesses do, or people don't fail, ideas do. I think, Mike, what you're speaking to is that individually you just want to make bets and take risks and do things, but no knockout punches. Not for like you individually.
I just think organizations love to look at things that didn't go well and pick them apart and Monday morning quarterback them. And I am just increasingly like, I don't know that that's helpful at all. I think if you're able to say, hey, we tried this thing. What did we learn about where the organization needs to grow, where we need more people, where we need more expertise? Fine. But when you're like, oh, we tried this thing and we were really excited and it didn't work. And, why didn't it work? And what should we have known? And how should we have thought different? I'm just not convinced that actually leads to that much better outcomes. Because sometimes it's just, hey, we took on something that had 15% chance of working and we were in the 85. And that's it. On to the next one.
Yeah, and it being okay with it. I want to circle back to something you said, Mike, about being 44. Dude, I'm so excited for you guys because like that's so young when you think about it. Like all of you guys are so accomplished, and like Warren Buffett did his best work between 60 and 90. Like I'm like, bro, you guys aren't even there yet. Like you like thinking you have a 50-year career ahead of you. I mean, is that inspiring or does that feel daunting? Like Jason, like you got 30 more years of being a badass executive. You're gonna be on boards and shit. What are you gonna? Are you bummed or burned? What?
Life is good, man. I'm just sort of taking it as it comes. There's so much fun opportunity out there, through Hexclad and golf. Like I've just met so many cool people over the last few years, from chefs to great business people, to like cool influencers, and it's really just about having a good time, like doing things that make you happy when you get to this age. I always tell everyone, like I have a lot in my life now. I'm super grateful for it, but it actually took me a long time. I always had a great career. I went to law school, I went to business school, did all those things, but like I don't think I had a 7-figure year until I was like 49 or 50. I got close a few times, but I didn't have a 7-figure year. And now, it's so different. So I definitely look forward to having a really good work-life balance. I have put in lots of hours over the years, and it's easy to joke now about what I do with my golf and travel and stuff. But I did 300 billable hour months while at Skadden, like in 1997. So so like
With a fax machine.
time in the green, time in the game, as Matt said. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to all the different things. I love this pod. I was in I forget what airport the other day, and somebody walked right up to me in the airport, and then really nice guy. I've met him before actually, and then like I look at Twitter and I got a tweet. Maybe you guys got the same DM, but some guys like, "Hey, I just want you to know, I think I was the very first listener to the Operators Pod." Did you guys get that one?
The fact that we kept going when the first episode had a single person listening to it is amazing.
You would just talk about losses.
Our listener, we used to refer to him as our listener.
this pod for you, man.
Hey, so here's a crazy stat. Morgan Housel, who's fantastic, worked at Motley Fool for a while, and now he's become an author and some great stuff. I'd really recommend it to everybody. But one of the things he has that's gold is a blog. And if you just Google the Freakishly Strong Base, it's a fantastic article. In that article, one of the points he makes about Warren Buffett today is worth $140 billion. When he turned 50, he was worth $300 million. So whatever that is, 99 point whatever percent of his wealth happened after his 50th birthday. In fact, this is even crazier. At his 87th birthday, he was worth $80 billion, and now he's worth $140 billion. He's almost doubled it from 87 to 93. And I just think this is the longevity piece. There's actually a pretty great story. Jim Collins went and visited Peter Drucker, and he was at his house, and Drucker had this bookshelf. And he told Collins to look at the bookshelf, and he said, hey, Jim, look at that bookshelf that was full of books. He said, full of Peter Drucker's books. And he said, what do you think about that bookshelf? Makes me proud. And Drucker said, and Collins said, I don't know. What is it? And Drucker said, 80% of that bookshelf has been written after my 65th birthday, or something like that. And it's just a reminder that we are early on, and that the number one way that you can fail to reach the potential that you have is, like you said, Matt, getting knocked out of the game. And you can get knocked out of the game by the market, by external forces, but most often, you get taken out of the game by yourself, either by being overly aggressive, by not managing yourself, taking care of yourself, by not treating people in a way where they want to work with you anymore, whatever that is. And so it's actually, it's so simple, but it's funny because most people don't get it. Most of how you be successful is by having duration, and that starts with not taking yourself out of the game.
Yeah, individually, I think I think we conflate the two, like the business and the person, like the business and the entrepreneur. Like individually is what I think is the key takeaway. Because Mike, I completely agree. It's funny. I do think you're like I'm going to call you like the Morgan Housel of e-commerce, Mike. I don't know what it is. You remind me of Morgan Housel so much. I couldn't figure it out for a while. I'm like, who does Mike remind me of? It's like, it's that guy. That's the guy. Yeah, he's great. I encourage everybody to read that. That's a great piece. And then 1,000 True Fans by Kevin Kelly is like probably the classic thing. If you're going to build a brand or a business or anything, that essay, which is very old at this point, will change your perception of business.
To use one more Morgan Housel story, he has a book, Psychology of Money, that was number one on the New York Times bestseller list for quite a few years, or quite a long time. And in there, he tells a story about Jesse Livermore. Do you guys know who Jesse Livermore is?
Rings a bell, but no.
Okay, I didn't know who he was. So apparently, in the 1920s, as it's getting to the later 1920s, you're just in massive bull market, and everybody's long, everybody's doing crazy stuff on margin because stocks have just gone up, 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 up. And there is this guy, Jesse Livermore, that like within days or weeks of the very top, he goes hard short the entire market, and makes, in the stock market crash that comes, he makes just an unbelievable amount of money. I can't remember what it was, but adjusted for time and inflation, the dude just crushes it because there's this epic stock market crash. You know what happened to Jesse Livermore by 1935? He went bankrupt. The one guy who had the best insight about the market, like an all-time oracle insight about the market, he made all that money, and then he gave it all back, plus everything he had, because he wasn't able to manage himself in the years after it. And so the lie that we tell ourselves is that if I had the right circumstances, I would be self-disciplined. If I had the right circumstances, I'd be happy. If I had the right circumstances, I would be satisfied. I would be content. And we know from everything from the Bible to all the psychological research out there that a truth of the human mind is that that's not how it works at all. That the problems that we have don't get solved by circumstance. That circumstance, if anything, just highlights the problems that we have. And many people, many even entrepreneurs, will go through their life with this illusion that if my circumstances had just been better, then I would have been successful. And the reality is that it's never our circumstances. Whether you're running a $1 million business or a $1 billion business, ultimately your success or failure is going to come from your ability to manage yourself. And the biggest threats are always internal.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Operator's Northbeam ad unit. So 30 seconds, I'm going to tell you all about how if you have any problems with Northbeam, you can directly message Austin, the CEO. He is there. He will set up your ad account. He will make your bet. He'll give you cookies. Really, they have a dedicated team of people, probably 30, 40, 50 reps at this point, who will make sure Northbeam is working correctly and functioning so you can get amazing data out of this ecosystem. They will be more hands-on than any meta rep will ever be, and they're going to help you understand where your ad dollars are best spent, best positioned, and which ads are working. My team works with the Northbeam team literally every day. They're in my Slack. Maybe you don't get the same level of support as an operator, but they will be there to make sure it's working. And if you're not happy at all, just email Austin. He will take care of you. We use Northbeam every day. It's a benchmarking tool. It's super helpful for forecasting, daily pacing, inter-hour pacing. So we can see like if we just launched an ad in 2 hours, if it's working or not. That's what Northbeam does for us. So thank you, Northbeam, for the support. I'm customer probably number one. So thank you so much.
Well, one thing to add regarding Northbeam, because we just went through a contract renewal with them on their specifically on the MMM. And we got a pretty sweetheart deal, and I expect them to come back to us and raise our price, and they kind of deserve it. I was like, let me reach out to the team, and see how it's going, right? Because I'm not in the day to day. I get feedback, and the team was like, they have improved the MMM so much since we started it that they were like, we should definitely pay for this increase. So. And my team hates every agency and most SaaS. The only person that hates SaaS, the only more than my team is Sean, Frank. But yeah, I mean, they came to us. They're like, hey, you guys got the sweetheart deal. We wanted the first MMM clients. And I was very, very pleased when my team was like, it's really working well for us. So that's my little MMM plug.
Well, welcome, Austin, co-founder and CEO of Northbeam. Northbeam being a big supporter of the pod since day one, and Northbeam being absolutely instrumental, I think, in the success of Hexclad and Ridge. Austin threatened to come to see me in the Hamptons this weekend. I thought he was coming. I didn't hear anything, and next thing I know, he's coming up.
I can't keep up with you coastal elites. You're in LA, you're in San Francisco, you're in the Hamptons.
These fucking Californians, man, they're just ruining everything.
They live a different. Yeah, I had to get back to San Francisco to the home base. I know it's your favorite place, Jason and the team, but yeah, it was nice to be here. Get back, I know, but yeah, had to get back with Dan Huang, our CTO, and spend some time with him. So,
Austin, are you in office right now? Or is this your house?
This is my house right now, but office later. Had to join you guys from home, so I don't want to distract anybody.
So welcome to the pod, buddy.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
So Austin, what do you want to talk about, man?
I gotta say, it's been fun watching the podcast evolve, and it's crazy how many people go up to me and say they listen to it now. Like when you first started, it was popular, but now it's really wild. Like I'll be at a conference, and it's really been exciting to see you guys build this thing out. So thanks for having me. Yeah. Well, I guess you saw the Meta announcement on Wednesday.
Why don't you tell us more about that? Tell us more about that.
That's be a huge deal for you guys, right, Austin?
It really is.
What a partnership.
Assume no one has read the press release from Meta. So what is Northbeam? What does it do?
Yeah. I'll dumb it down the best I can. So yeah, basically, they reached out to us quite some time ago, just saying that, they had heard a lot about us and that they had looked at our data kind of to see what we were doing. And that they were impressed with, how we had kind of helped companies like, the Ridge and Hexclad and others. And it was very clear to them why, the quality of our data and what we were doing. And so we basically, in a dumbed down version, we're sending aggregated attribution data back to Meta, right, to their algo on an aggregated, ad level basis, right? So, which is nice because it's it helps folks know if their ads are doing well on the algo side, right? So on Meta's side, and so like let's just say there's two ads, one with Austin, one with Sean. We all know the one with Sean's going to do better. And so, the aggregated attribution data for the one with Sean is going to now just is sent back to Meta, as opposed to Connor having to just redistribute more money to Sean, which he can do. But now we're talking about the actual performance itself, right? The performance of Sean versus Austin on an individual ad level, which is really exciting. So it helps them being Meta, do a better job of figure out what to do on their side, right? So yeah, it's obviously important in terms of speed and velocity, right? So getting the right ads to the right cohorts faster is the idea.
Yeah, let's talk about internal meta structure. I think this is going to be interesting, but like inside baseball, behind the scenes for all the people listening. There are 3 levels of support offered in Meta. There's normal account reps, right, which is
Right,
basically no support, right?
right,
Then
right.
there's this disruptors level, and it's like this in between where very small group, maybe 200 brands, but all e-com focused. And then there's an in-market team. There's a bigger segment. And
Right.
Meta internally looks at the disruptors program as people who are very fast, very quick with technology, and like
Yeah.
willing to do whatever it takes to win.
Right.
So like we're in there, Jason's in there. You need to spend like at least $20 million a year to get in. And you have to just be willing to test whatever. And I think what Meta really liked is that Northbeam had like a 70% penetration in the disruptors level. They're like, "Holy shit, like
Exactly.
we've never seen so many people use this piece of technology across the board." And I think that's how you came on Meta's radar. It's just a huge percentage of disruptors were like using it as a go-to tool. And then the really cool thing is that, Meta was a walled garden for 10 years. And then they got fucked over by iOS 14 because they were relying on Apple's data. And
Right.
now they've gone a complete 180. They're willing to let people import whatever data they want because they're like, it'll just make our machines better. And I think
Exactly.
Northbeam is the first or primary
Yeah.
partner in that.
Yeah. We were definitely ahead of the pack, which is nice. And we try to be as helpful as we can. We want to be supportive of the platforms and most importantly, help you all, like customers, right? Like our brands. Like we know it's tough out there. It's hard to do well. And so that's our goal at Northbeam, is just help our customers make more money and do better all the time. So yeah, it's exciting for us. And yeah, there's a lot coming over the years. And um, obviously this is kind of the beginning. There's a lot more coming, which I can't talk about today, but like, I think it's going to be exciting time for direct to consumer, which is hard. It's hard to be wildly successful in direct to consumer and stay that way, as you all well know. So our job is and Meta's job, we're all in it to like make it a little bit more efficient and profitable for you all. So
Austin, do
yeah,
you is this sort of, and this is like, feel free to speculate or not, but
sure.
from Meta's perspective, is this similar to what they used to do with buying third-party data from like Oracle and Equifax? Like, remember they had to give all that shit up with the
Yeah.
Cambridge Analytica scandal? Are they sort of
Yeah.
trying to refill in those types of gaps now?
Well, no, it's a good call out for like what's different today versus in the past,
Yeah.
right? So I wouldn't say it's that, because in terms of compliance, what we're so excited about is we're sending aggregated performance data, right? So that was like user level, that was user level data, right? What's so exciting about this, it's just aggregated data. It's like performance data, right? It's like, did Sean generate more revenue than Austin's ad, right? And the answer is, as we said earlier, Austin's generating more revenue as a whole and performing better, versus in those days, you're sending like user data, right? And so you could, I mean, I know you're technical, Matt, in your background. I don't know if Matt's ever talked on the podcast. You were a solutions engineer, right?
Yeah,
At
man. I was
NetSuite,
software
right?
developer first before anything
That's
else.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea is basically, we're not doing that. So it's actually not. It's almost like the opposite of that, right? In sense,
Yep.
not similar in the sense of trying to fill the gaps, like you're saying, but not in terms of user level data.
What I understand is you're sending over, I mean, the actual conversion data, you're sending over what's happening on my Shopify website, right? Like from completing the journey from, the walled garden of Facebook through the ad purchasing journey, getting the actual, you know, like end goal data, right? Like which ad drove,
Performance.
yeah,
Yeah,
which ad
performance.
drove sales, which like
Right.
Meta has a hard time figuring out, and you're sending that back to Meta to like complete that like that 360 circle.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's right. So particularly over long time frames, like if you have, if you have high AOVs, right? We all know, you're not going to convert in 7 days, right? You're just not. I mean, we have customers that sell products that are $3,000, right? Or more, and you're not, I mean, some people have that kind of money and impulse buy. But, a lot of people are going to consider, right? And as we all know, if not a lot of, I mean, there are some quick purchases like on a day or a week, but there's a lot of products where you're going to consider.
Hey, Austin,
So that,
you obviously see a ton of data. I
yeah.
mean, how much spend is running through Northbeam now?
Wow.
Proprietary.
No, I mean, it's a good question, and it's obviously
it's
rising.
in multiple, it's like billions, right?
Oh, many, many billions. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know we've tracked well over, I think 9-10 billion in spend, right? And now, I mean, just Meta alone, it's in the billions.
So one of
these
the things
days,
I've been
right?
asking you to do for a while, and I know you had there was a cool newsletter that you were sending out, but like really aggregating industry data, doing like longitudinal studies that show, like, because particularly now, since in the last 6 months, I've never heard as much commentary about bugginess of Meta and
Yeah.
performance. Like, there's always bugs, right? And you had the one where like it just spent everyone's money one morning, like a
Yeah.
year ago, and like whatever
Yeah.
that happens. You have to assume that there will be bugs in any software, but lately, I think in the last 6 months, and we've been seeing it too. We talk about it. It feels like the consumer during the evergreen periods is less active, but is kind of waiting for deals. And I think it's showing
Yeah.
up, like Sean points out, like luxury goods like Gucci's and the Burberry's, you can see their numbers are soft. And
Right.
this is, I think, a really important question for everyone right now. So what are you seeing in terms of consumer spend, or
Yeah.
and because you can just track it based on performance, right? Like, what
Yeah.
does the performance look like? Just, can you give us
No,
anything?
it's a good question. And I mean, Jason, we've been talking about that for years, I think, like that, the slicing our data in different ways, and it's coming for the media buying newsletter, which I highly recommend everyone subscribe to. It's really cool. Northbeam.io to add it. But yeah, it's we are offering the industry stuff. I get asked that question a lot, like, what's the market? What's happening in the market? Where is it changing? Is it better on this platform versus the other platform? There are platform shifts that are dynamic, and so, you do have to be on top of your data to say, oh, wow, which platform is performing better right now. I know Sean talks about it, or he'll tweet about it, like, oh, wow, such and such platform is now working again, or isn't, or whatever. And I think the industry is a factor too, obviously, Jason, right? So like certain industries are suffering. So without mentioning the name, there are some legacy, what we'll call legacy brands have been around, or they like to call them iconic brands. Some people like to use that term versus legacy. They can be suffering sometimes because if they're moving slower than, like, let's say this cohort, and not taking advantage of arbitrage and shifting, but just doing the same thing all the time, both from a creative, promotional strategy, they can really suffer. And I'm seeing this across public company CEOs I talk to, where if you don't move faster and you're not more dynamic in like the way you shift budget and creative, you're going to suffer. I find that the brands that are like always learning and adjusting and promoting and changing their strategy are doing better, right? And so it's not necessarily industry, it's like how you approach the industry, right? How you execute. And I think, and it's always been the case, right? The people that execute better do better. That's obvious, right? But I think given today's market, where things move faster and there's more change, and like you said, Jason, customers are really looking for deals. You have to be even more dynamic in your approach. And so the brands that we see that do well are the ones that, like, they do that really well. Because think about it. If you do the same thing and it's not working, and you don't know it's not working, you're just pouring money, right? You're not going to do well, right? And then you're going to overspend, or underspend as it could be. And then you pull back, and then it's like a cycle and you start going down, right? Or you're just using last click and you're just driving yourself into the ground. And then all of a sudden, you're not growing. And then you overreact the other direction. So to me, what I see, Jason, is the brands that are smart, that execute well, are doing well. And the ones that are like still trying to get their teams together are suffering.
But the question is like, what is well? I think that's the question. Because everyone who I talk to, I don't see a lot of people like breaking their arm, patting themselves on the back for their strong performance this year. Whereas like I knew a bunch of people in 23 and 22, including me, kind of doing that. And like, look, we're actually at our size and scale, we are doing really well. But you have to like, expectations need to change with size, with scale, with markets. And so, that's kind of like the conundrum right now.
No, I get it. I mean, I think people are scared about consumer sentiment. And obviously you could see a slight pullback, but nothing, I wouldn't say dramatic, but like maybe a slight pullback. I wouldn't say like I'm seeing like, oh, there's no consumer demand. I remember last year I was really scared about the fourth quarter. We talked about it, Jason. I think like I was nervous because the year before I was very confident it was going to be a huge fourth quarter. This past year I was pretty nervous. And it was like a good fourth quarter, not a great. It was like, relatively speaking, for our customers at least. I'm pretty bullish on this fourth quarter.
Well, that's interesting. I'm glad you talked about fourth quarter because last year, fourth quarter, we went in with like ridiculous expectations and we did like amazing, not ridiculous. Right. This year, I'm actually having this conversation with a lot of people and specifically people on our team because some consumer brands like ours are very heavily weighted toward November and December, which is a very giftable or a big purchase that people are going to wait for. And we got to order stock. Like we got to do. We're putting in production orders for Q4 in like June, and we're messaging that to the factories. And there's some serious cash going into those orders, and particularly when 40+% of your sales are in like Q4. And I actually agree with you, Austin. I think the consumer is really going to show up in Q4. I do. Yeah. And maybe I'm just like, that's a very convenient assumption for me. But that's like the way I see it.
Well, Austin, what makes you say that? Are you seeing something?
Yeah, I mean, I see customers starting to do a little bit better in August, right? Like broadly speaking, like I do see things are picking up. Like, there were some rough patches over the last couple of months with consumer sentiment, but I definitely see things starting to tick up. Customers exceeding forecasts, because, when we're doing media mix modeling with our machine learning, we see, are people doing better than, model forecasts from like historical periods? And people are starting to uptick right now, which is exciting, right? You're seeing that people are starting to go a little bit better than they've done historically. So that leads me to believe that there's like this upward tick trend where customers are starting to feel a little more comfortable. Obviously, there's the macro, like interest rates, what Jerome Powell's signaling. I think the hope is that consumers will really get excited. And it's like a wave. I think they've been slow over the summer, like Jason was saying, like people have been cautious. But I think the fourth quarter is going to be tremendous this year.
I think reasons to be excited about Q4 are we will get rate cuts in September.
Yep. Right.
Like some amount, right? Like they've signaled that they will do at least one, potentially two. Right. You will get clarity on the election, and we have a customer this year that is just more discount focused. So show up in Q4 with a discount, with a clear consumer who's more willing to borrow. I think we'll have a very big Q4. I want to pivot the conversation slightly. Austin, you see 10 billion in ad spend or whatever. You have this awesome partnership with Meta. Where is the number 2 channel? Like people talk about TikTok, people talk about Snapchat, people talk about YouTube, Google. You actually have insight. Where should people actually be putting effort, or is it Meta all day, every day?
Yeah, great question. I get that for a decent amount. I would say this. I think you've posted about Snapchat, Sean. I mean, they're being aggressive, getting back in the mix. My answer is it does depend a bit on the brand, right? Like some brands do really well on TikTok, some don't, right? So a lot of it depends on your cohort, your audience. Our media buying newsletter does show like market share, right? Like, so like share of spend. So it's obviously Google and Meta are the kind of giants in the share of spend, right? But I want to answer the question in a little more nuanced way, which is depending on your category, like beauty versus home goods versus automotive versus mattresses or whatever market you're in. I think it depends, but obviously share a market, it's Google and Meta, right? So, but in terms of the other channels like the Snapchat, TikTok, Pinterest, even some customers will see really great success and start to shift into those different, which requires testing, as you all know. But yeah, I would say obviously Meta and Google are the big share of spend, but you've got people like Snapchat and obviously TikTok they're kind of, and X too. Let's not forget X, right? They're starting to get it together and really push, we have an integration with them at Northbeam with X, and excited to see what they could do over time.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Snapchat just because, you know, I think we both met Evan Spiegel, and
Yeah.
I get emails from them all the time. They really want to win, and that's what I
Yeah.
like to see is that like when an organization is built around servicing e-com advertisers, I'm like, oh great, that's what I want to see. I've seen that from Twitter. I haven't seen that from Pinterest. I haven't seen that from TikTok. I think TikTok really just wants shops to work. That's just my own perspective.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what else do
No,
you
I
think
hear you.
about?
I think the Ridge was featured on Evan Spiegel. Evan Spiegel featured you on like an earnings call a long time ago. I think it was like, is that right or no?
Yeah, like the very first one, and we just got featured in this latest one. So I'm a Snapchat bull, dude. I think they're at all-time low stock price right now. Not
Yeah.
financial advice, but I mean, you got to think when Meta offered to buy Snapchat for $20 billion, I think Meta was worth 300 billion, and now Meta's worth 1.3 trillion, and Snapchat's worth 15 billion. So if there's regime change in Washington, they are an easy acquisition target for anybody.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'll be curious to see what happens with them, and I like to see the energy that they're pushing. Yeah, it's again, that's kind of it depends on the brand. Like some brands, you could do really well on certain platforms, others you can't, as you guys all know that, right? But yeah, that's kind of my take on the platforms.
Are there characteristics, Austin, that you've noticed? Like, is it the obvious stuff? You get brands that service a younger customer go to TikTok, or is it regional? Like, is there anything like from a guidance perspective that you're like, oh yeah, if you're this kind of company, then like this is working? I'm just trying to get like a level down.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Like a level deeper, like why, like if I'm this brand, what the weird part is, you would think it's something like that, but it's not. Like you would think, oh, if I'm targeting an older audience, I shouldn't use like TikTok. That's not true. Like you can reach older. It is a common belief, but it's just not true. It depends on like the style of your creative. Are you optimized for TikTok? Like, are you creating the right kind of content? Because they have older audiences on TikTok, right? So it's just how well are you executing on that platform? Sometimes people make content for TikTok. It's just the wrong type of content. They're not set up right, and it just won't execute. They're like, oh wow, there isn't this demographic on there. But no, it's like you haven't executed. It goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like very few people execute well at scale. I mean, and you all know that. Obviously, it's hopefully that we know that your podcast helps give tips to folks to execute better at scale, but it's kind of what this is. But not everyone does it, right? A lot of people talk about it, very few people do it.
Austin, how much of your conversation or your team's conversation with brands focus on channel or versus creative and creative to channel?
That's a really good question. Our job is not to be the arbiter of creative, right? We're a data we're attribution, right? So it's not really our bag, but I won't mention names, of course, but
well, you give me shit about creative. Come on, you can.
I do.
You could mention names. He's like, heck, that stuff is too lo-fi, dude. Step it up. Like that's okay.
I do.
It's okay.
I do because I view Hexcloud as such a amazing premium brand. So, if I see something, I feel like, I got to give my 2 cents to my friends here. But yeah, there was one instance where that was just more of a nitpick. But there has been a case. We brought on a public company a while back, and in fact, I had a chat with them recently about the same conversation where we brought them on. I looked at their Northbeam meta performance numbers, okay, and they were horrific. And we're talking about like click-through rates of like a 0.1%, e-com conversion. I mean, you should be at least a 0.5% or closer to 1%, right? They were like 0.1. Some creative they're spending a lot of money against was even lower. And I called up the CMO. I said, look, if you don't get someone new doing your creative, you're going to go out of business. I mean, this is that bad. And they were spending a lot. It's a public company, right? And I said, you got to like make radical change. I don't even think you can like work in this environment. You've got to do something radical. And I go, and I didn't even know this CMO that well. So it was like a risk for me to like come in, be like, basically you suck, right? Which I said, I thought in my head, I was like, well, if I don't say it, we're all hosed anyway. And so he listened to me and they switched everything and performance was 5x better like a month later, 2 months later. Right. So, sometimes I do that, Matt. It's not like I make a habit of it, but I did it again the other day with a brand you guys would definitely all know. So I can't say, but I was like, this is not good. So we don't do it a lot, but
And that customer was Apple. So that's who Austin's calling. He's calling up fucking execs at Apple, $1 trillion company. Like, this shit sucks, man. You need to up this.
I'm always looking at the richest stuff. It's so good.
That's right.
So good.
Austin, if you had to give one tip right now,
Yeah.
e-com merchants doing between $5 and $50 million a year, going into Q4, what you've seen this year, what is one thing that they should
give
do?
us an actionable. I'm going to give you a second. I'm going to give you a second to think. Like, give us an
I'm
action.
ready.
Let's close it out with an actionable insight here.
I'm ready. You need to get your hook of the offer, why your product's better, why your product's different immediately, and make it simple, clean, why your product's a differentiator in the market. Test it where, it can't just be your discount, but like what is great about your product, make it clear within a second or 2 or 3, get that dialed in and prepped so that when you do scale in Q4 and you start spending more money, you know why customers are going to buy your product. And it sounds simple, right? Like I've talked to Connor at the Ridge about this many times, like, fat wallet, slim wallet, just make that simple one hook differentiated pitch for your product and dial it in and and then nail that you got to nail that. That's like the first step in being like a real brand. It's like simple, quick. Cause you see people, they have these long videos or like long verbose things and they're not able to be concise and just like hook someone in to their product. Easier said than done. Right. But I think that's the most important thing.
Brevity is a skill. It's hard to come by.
Yep. I agree. So that's it.
All right. Is that the app? What Austin, plug, dude. You pay for the plug.
Oh, Northbeam.io. We're here.
Yeah,
you should have said the one thing brands need between $5 and $50 million. Use Northbeam.
Hey, let me do this. I haven't asked anything because you guys know infinitely more than me, but I'm going to ask actually one more question before you do your plugging, Austin.
Sure.
What have you learned about operating and leading an organization? Like, this is not ad specific, but the show is about operating, and you've had a unique vantage point in doing that. What are a couple of things you've learned along the way?
Yeah, I'd say the most important thing I've learned is get people that are fit your culture, right? We drive hard, we push hard in Northbeam. We have fun doing it, but it's an intense atmosphere. I think making sure that every single person at the company is part of that cultural style, right? And that fits that culture. And so, I spend time interviewing every single person we bring on to just kind of feel that aspect out. We do such rigorous testing to bring people on, but I think it's very dangerous when you bring people in that aren't bought into the culture. And so I'm like very careful about that. And then I feel like everything else takes care of itself because, you have the team polices the culture, right? But I think I just, people underestimate how important it is to have every single person just like bought into the ethos of the business and the way we operate. And then everyone kind of adopts it and helps to maintain it,
What's the worst hire you've ever made?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. You mean in Northbeam or just in my life?
You can just do your whole life.
Whole life. Oh, wow.
Great.
Oof. That is tough.
That's a tough question.
That is a really tough one.
I don't know
say
if that's
it's
a fair
good one.
question.
No, that's all right. I'm gonna roll with it. Sean's good with these hot questions and takes. I would say someone that was a self-proclaimed lazy person, right? Meaning they were just not willing to work hard and thought that was okay. And I was kind of mad at myself because I should have probably saw it coming. And that's why I'm so careful, like to almost warn people off in the interview process of like what the culture is. And I was more mad at myself. I don't think it was their fault, probably my fault, to not like go through that rigor of like, hey, this is the way we roll. This is the atmosphere. And by then I was, already saddled with someone that just felt like, working hard didn't matter that much. And it was just almost comical in a way, but probably wasn't their fault. It was my fault for not setting the expectation,
I love that point about just sometimes setting expectations and trying to almost scare people off. It's easy when you think
Yeah.
when you're hiring that it's all trying to attract and trying to paint a great picture. But counterintuitively, some of the best hirers I know are people that actively try and convince people to not take the job. Like once they find a good candidate, it's like, okay, now let me try and talk you out of this. Let me give you all the reasons why you don't want to take this job. Because there's really clear expectations. And then if they get in there, like they're not going to be caught off guard by a hard charging culture or whatever else.
Yeah.
Hey, Austin, circling it back to Northbeam for a minute, because I get this question from people and I feel like it's worth like really describing. So I look at Northbeam as really the MTA, right? Multi-touch attribution, which is where you got your start, which is incredibly helpful for us. And then your MMM, which is still pretty new, but I've been really, really happy with my team. Like I asked them about it. I think we had to renew our contract and we actually pay for it. And I talked to my team about it. And, I get your sales guys coming after me, looking for more money, as all these SaaS sales guys do. And I went to my team and I'm like, talk to me. Like, I was honest, like, is the MMM worth it? And I've had a lot of people ask me that, like separately off the pod, is the MMM worth it? And I was really very pleased when my head of paid advertising, Cam, said to me, definitely not canceling this, like definitely worth it. So you want to like touch on that real quick for everybody?
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I appreciate it. It's MM is hard, I mean, so is MTA. MTA is hard too, right? And so I think in the marketing e-com sphere, there's a lot of cynicism, rightly so, around all measurement tools, right? For good reason, right? There's a lot of like really snake oil out there, to be frank.
Or it's just hard to do.
It is hard to do well. It is.
It's hard to do well.
And we've been at MMM now for years at Northbeam, right? And we're just now, I mean, it's like a lot of things in life. You work really hard, you're working out, you're not seeing that your results are okay, right? You work out every week or month, and then you have that like breakthrough moment where you're like Sean, and now he can really crush pull-ups, right? But maybe not at first, right? And now we're starting to really ascend. We've really broken through some humps where we've really made some big discoveries. We're actually using artificial intelligence in our MMM. We're seeing some really exciting breakthroughs, like week to week now, right? It's like training, right? You train, you see nothing, and then all of a sudden you start to break through. And that's what's starting to happen now, where we're just really getting astronomically better every couple of weeks. Like I saw something new that's rolling out last week, and I didn't even know about it with the team. And they're making what we'll call scientific discoveries, like new ways to understand what's happening for a brand. So we're really excited about it, and great to hear the feedback.
Well, Jason, you're the perfect client for an MMM just
Yeah.
because
Totally.
you're at a huge scale, you spin across all of these channels. And, you know, the reason why I think there's anger or resentment or, not like a murkiness around measurement tools. Like Austin said, there's a lot of snake oil out there, but like you have to be at a scale to get value out of it, right? Like if you're
Yeah.
spending 50K a month, holy shit, no. It's like you don't need
Yeah,
these
exactly.
services. But like, you know, uh, Jason, if you save 1% in bad spend per year, it's literally over $1 million, right? Like your ad budget's probably $300 million a year next year or something like that. So saving 1%, like it pays for your marketing team, right? And that's where, a lot of, I think, like you reach a certain point where it's a no-brainer to use these type of tools, right? I think MTA
Yeah.
kicks in at $1 million a month. Like, yep, if it'll pay for itself if you can just save 1% of spend, right? And then with
Paying
the
for
MMM,
itself is the best concept that a lot of, like, I see people just like getting crazy about these decisions of whether to pay for this or pay for that. And certain tools, there are SaaS software products that are just like a tool that you need to use one, and that there are a few like email or SMS. Like, some of them can be the best. Like Postscript is really good. They try to be really innovative, and I think they're differentiated. But like if you look at Klaviyo and some of these other guys, like it's not like, okay, well, this is going to make me money. Whereas there are certain tools, and Northbeam is one of them, where it's like the cost should be irrelevant in the calculation. Of course, you don't want to get ripped off. You don't rip people off, but like it's not about the cost. It's about how much money is this going to make me. Like I don't think that people deliver that sales pitch well enough in the SaaS world. This is going to make you money. Northbeam, like Sean, that savings pays for Northbeam 10x or plus. So the value proposition. And I was talking to another SaaS. I was talking to Saris Analytics guys because we're using them to build our data warehouse, and they have some really great clients. And I'm like, look, you got to get your sales pitch right. You got to have awesome case studies showing how you make people money. It's like, and so Northbeam is the same.
No, it's a great point, Jason. Jason always, from his technology banking background, you know this stuff, right? You've had conversations with folks in the past around this exact subject, and we're working on it. Hopefully, come Q4, we'll have a better story. But right now, we're just busy trying to figure out how to help you all, right? So, like Apex, right? The meta thing, which finding ways to just dial up that revenue even better. But then we got to package the story. Just like, remember the advice I gave? What's your simple hook? Why you're bad? I still have to do that, right?
Look, if Apex, which is, I mean, we should have said the name earlier, which is the Northbeam, data pipeline into Meta, if that makes my Meta ads 2% better, then like Northbeam is now undercharging by 100%, right? And like that becomes the gold standard. Because like to Jason's point, how do you pay for yourself? My number one line item, 30 to 50% of revenue is going to marketing spend. Whatever I can do to make that a little bit more effective, it's such outsized gains, right?
Yeah.
It's if I make marketing 5% better, it's like making COGS 50% cheaper. Like it's not that drastic, but it's pretty close, right? So
No, it's great, Sean. That's well said. Yeah, that's why Apex is so exciting, our data hub, because it's not Cappy, it's not all that stuff. This is a integration with Meta on the directly on the algo side, right? So it's a different thing, and it's pretty exciting. So really hope that we can help all the brands listening.
If you are spending $1 million or more and you are not on Northbeam, get on Northbeam, get on Apex, then at least you can test that going into Q4. Maybe it makes it slightly better. I'll report on my live results as they come down the pipeline. So Austin, thank you for being here. I love what you're doing. thank you for coming on. Thank you for sponsoring the Operators Podcast newsletter and Media Empire.
My pleasure. Really excited to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Pleasure.
See ya.
You made it. An amazing episode of the Operators Podcast. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing to the newsletter. Thank you to Fulfill, the best sponsor on earth. Northbeam, Postscript. They're tied for 2 of the best sponsors on earth. Love them. Love what they do for us. Thank you for being here. Subscribe, like, share. Follow me on Twitter. Follow the other guys on Twitter. Talk to you later. Goodbye.